Senator Kennedy.
Who invited you here today?
I came with Protect Our Winters.
Right. But you're here on behalf of the Democrats or the Republicans?
I'm here on behalf of the outdoor enthusiasts around America.
Okay. You were contacted by Senator Whitehouse's staff?
I personally came with Protect Our Winters, so I don't know how that went exactly.
What is carbon dioxide?
I went to high school, but that's carbon dioxide is a gas.
Okay.
I'm not a professional to talk about carbon dioxide so much, but
Well, you want us to abolish it, right?
no, there's always going to be carbon dioxide.
Right. So what is it you want us to do?
I
Let me back up, because I want to, I mean, you're here as an expert. Tell me more about what carbon dioxide is.
I'm here as an expert cross-country skier who sees the changes in my winters and the landscape that I live in Alaska. And so carbon dioxide is what I see it as is, it's a gas that exists in our atmosphere. And
What, is it the major part of our atmosphere? Or?
it's a huge part of our atmosphere, yes.
It's actually a very small part of our atmosphere.
Well, okay. But, yeah, I don't know. What are you asking specifically?
Well, you say we need to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. I'd like to know first if you know what it is. You want us to abolish fossil fuels?
I never said that.
You never have said that?
No.
Okay. What do you think we ought to do with fossil fuels?
What will we do with fossil fuels?
Yeah. Should we make any changes?
I would like to see a decrease in the use of fossil fuels. I think there's a possibility to use more electric generation.
Okay. Over what period of time? 10 years, 50 years, 100 years?
That's not, I would like to see it come as fast as possible while continuing.
How fast?
Sorry?
How fast?
I don't have a
You
great
don't
answer
know?
for that, no.
Okay. You just think, well, how much will it cost for us to become carbon neutral in the United States by 2050?
I'm not a professional on that. I don't have an answer.
You don't have any idea?
No.
You just think we ought to spend the money?
I'm not an economist.
Yeah, but it's going to cost money. You realize that?
Yeah, but we've also talked about the trade-off of what the cost of climate change as emergencies will cost in the future also. So
Right. But it's going to cost trillions of dollars to become carbon neutral by 2050, right?
I do not know.
You don't know. You just think we ought to do it.
I don't have a great answer for you, but I think
Okay.
I would. Like
If
to
we
see
if we spent those trillions of dollars and became carbon neutral by 2050 in the United States, which you advocate, how much will it reduce world temperatures?
I don't have an answer for that.
You don't know?
No.
You just think we ought to spend the money and then see what happens?
I think as an athlete, I think if we spend that money and invest in our future, hopefully those temperatures stop rising and maybe the snow at least stabilizes where it is for me. But yeah, I don't think anyone knows for sure. I don't know anyway.
Well, when my colleagues invite witnesses to come to us to tell us, advise us on passing legislation, I always check out the background of our witnesses because I like to know who I'm talking to. I checked yours out, Mr. Schumacher, and I want to be sure I understand it as I evaluate your testimony. On June 8, 2020, you tweeted, I'm going to quote, "The war on drugs was intentionally created to incarcerate black people en masse," end quote. The war on drugs, you said, was intentionally created to incarcerate black people en masse. Who intentionally created the war on drugs to put black people in jail? Who were you talking about?
I don't remember typing that.
You don't?
No.
It's on your Twitter feed.
Maybe a retweet. I don't know. I haven't used that in a while.
Well,
Also,
even
it
if
doesn't
it's a
seem like
retweet, it shows your support, right?
Maybe, yeah. But it's not the topic of this conversation.
Right, right. But it has to do with, you're here giving us advice, and I just kind of like to know a little bit more about your point
Yeah,
of view.
I'm here as an athlete giving you my story and what I've seen in my field.
On August 27th of 2020, you tweeted this, quote, I'm going to quote, "Police are paid with taxpayer dollars. If they are not answerable to us, we can demand new service, and that's what this is. Abolish the police in favor of that new service," end quote. You think we ought to abolish the police, do you?
Again, not the topic I'm here to talk about today.
I know, but you tweeted it. Do you think we ought to abolish the police?
That's not what I'm here to talk about.
Should we do that before or after we get rid of fossil fuels?
I'm not going to address that. That's,
You don't want to address it? Okay. Let me ask you about one more of your tweets. On August 26, 2020, you tweeted, there's a picture, I'm not going to describe the picture, but you said, quote, your words, not mine, it's on your Twitter feed, quote, "This is what systemic racism looks like. The Los Angeles Police Department is literally policing only the Black Lives Matter side," end quote. What'd you mean by that?
This is still off topic.
No, it's not. You're here as an expert telling us, advising us, and I'm asking you about your background.
I'm here as an athlete to talk about the effects of climate change on my sport.
Okay, let's go back. Well, I'm almost out of time.
Senator, you're well out of time, and we have other senators waiting, so please
Okay.
wrap up when you have a moment.
All right. Thank you all for your testimony.
Next is Senator Kennedy, who will be followed by Senator Kane.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I gather, Congressman, that you support trying to make the world carbon neutral by 2050?
Yes.
Okay. And I gather from your testimony that, in your judgment, part of achieving that goal is eliminating the use of fossil fuel generated energy.
Not immediately,
Right.
but there are staged reductions that would be required in order for us to meet that goal. And I don't think it requires the absolute elimination of all carbon fuels, but I think something like a steady 4% per year reduction.
By 2050, how much do we need to eliminate?
Well, what the scientists are telling us is that we in order to avert the most extreme calamities, we need to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
But here's what I'm getting at. Right now, America relies on fossil fuels for 80% of its energy. By 2050, what percentage do you think that should be in order for us to become carbon neutral?
I better not opine on that because I don't know, but I will tell you this, and I see where you're going. This is a tremendous challenge, maybe the greatest challenge of our lifetimes, and I think it.
I understand. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just give me a little bit of time here.
Yeah.
Are you? Let me ask you this: how many people are there in the world? What's the world's population?
Is it now 4.5 billion?
About 8 billion.
Is it 8?
Yeah,
8 billion?
I'm not trying to trick you.
All right.
I had to look it up myself.
I should have updated on that.
It's 8 billion people live in the
8 billion.
world.
Okay.
4 billion people depend on fertilizer made by natural gas to eat. If we didn't have natural gas, 4 billion people would starve to death. What do we do about that?
So
Instead of
that is,
fossil fuels.
I mean, that's precisely the challenge that we need to be confronting and that we should have been confronting all these decades. How do we disengage gradually from one model of energy consumption and move into another so that we are meeting the public health goals that are urgent, as the distinguished senator from New Mexico just.
Are you familiar with what's called a boreal forest?
No, only in those.
Or forests in the northernmost part of the world, just below the Arctic, in North America, in Eurasia. Millions of acres burn there naturally every year. The fires are less today than they were 150 years ago, but obviously forest fires produce carbon. And I was reading a study this weekend. I want to get my facts straight here. They said the carbon released by these naturally occurring forest fires in boreal forests, nobody lives there. Let's see. Wildfires in the boreal forests in North America and Eurasia in 1 year, 2021, released double the amount of all global CO2 produced in 2001. And 3 times as much as the Inflation Reduction Act is projected to reduce by 2030. My point is, the Inflation Reduction Act is going to end up costing about $1.2 trillion. Presumably, there are estimates about how much carbon it will reduce by 2030. American people are going to spend a lot of money, $1.2 trillion. For what? The carbon released by naturally occurring boreal forest fires in 2001 is 3 times the amount we'll save by asking the American people to spend $1.2 trillion of their money on the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, you know, unless you're the reason that your parents drank, that doesn't make sense, does it?
So thank you. I mean, it's a trenchant question, Senator. I've heard these comparisons before between natural greenhouse gas emissions, which are obviously a product of forestry and agriculture and the agricultural revolution, and what we contribute through industrial greenhouse gas emissions. But I think it's a bit of a distraction from the real issue because we take for granted.
These are peer-reviewed studies, Congressman.
Oh, no, but the peer-reviewed studies show
exist. I promise you.
Oh, no, but I'm not doubting the science for 1 minute. I'm saying let's take the science for granted. Let's take nature for granted. Thank God that we have forests and we have greenhouse gas emissions that come from agriculture and so on. All of that is something that we take for granted. Okay, now we also, however, can reduce agricultural greenhouse gas emissions through looking at industrial livestock practices.
My point is, I'm going way over. This is my last question.
Yeah.
We spend all this money. Okay, it's going to cost America about $1 trillion a year to make us carbon neutral by 2050.
Yes.
We don't lower world temperatures a scintilla of a degree if you look at the boreal forest fires. So what do?
Oh, I got you. But would you dispute that it would be far worse if we do nothing? In other words, if we stay on the path that big oil would have us stay on, are you denying that we would be in a situation where the Earth's temperature goes up?
That's not your goal in trying to make us carbon neutral. Is to be. It's a zero-sum game. Your goal is not to make it better. Your point is, as I understand it, that the world will end if we don't achieve the carbon neutrality.
Right. We want to prevent calamity. We want to make our one planetary habitat as livable as possible, right?
Do we need to spend trillions of dollars fighting the boreal forest fires?
Well, let's go back to the Inflation Reduction Act, which you invoked before. Most of the money which you're describing as being spent on climate change measures was actually tax incentives for the stimulation of renewable energy.
Agreed, but they're not stopping the boreal forest fires. I mean, we spend all this money and we reduce carbon, and the boreal forest fires just spit out 3 times the amount of carbon.
All right, do you?
What's the point?
I would love to read a peer-reviewed study on that. I mean, if we need a boreal forest.
Economist magazine, they talk about it all the time.
All right, I will check that out. But I mean, is the suggestion that we need a boreal forest fire department?
I'm asking you. I mean, well, what y'all's position is I get it. Nobody's perfect. Oil and gas is bad, and they're destroying the world. Let's get rid of them.
Yeah.
Okay, if we do that, that's going to cost a lot? If we do that, is the world going to be okay? And no.
I got you. I see where you're going. But if I might, Mr.
sorry,
Chairman,
Mr. Chairman.
if I could just take your beautiful state, which is very close to my heart. I lived in New Orleans a couple of times.
Come back and spend money.
But I definitely will. I plan to do that. Louisiana has traditionally dealt with hurricanes, but is now experiencing hurricanes of much greater velocity and much greater ferocity under the climate change conditions.
Really?
Well, then perhaps the science that I've been seeing
The
is
damages are higher because Louisiana's wealthier and there's more to destroy. But if you look at the studies on the intensity, they're about the same.
all right. But
Kennedy, Senator Kane is waiting to
sorry.
proceed if you don't
We were
mind.
just
We
having a
wrap
good
up.
talk.
I
No,
know
and
you are.
I'm enjoying this,
There you
actually.
are.
I'm
No, I
not
appreciate it.
complaining.
I'm sorry, Timmy. I'm sorry. Thank you, Congressman.
thank you, Senator.
Just for the record, my research while Senator Kennedy was speaking is that the total wildfire emissions are 1.8 billion tons of CO2 compared to 38 billion tons from fossil and industry. So we may have a dispute over the facts here.
Threatened and
Thank
thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Senator Grassley.
You're welcome. I'll send you a bill.
Ms. Campbell, according to the AVVO, I don't know whether that's pronounced, I have a profile. It appears that you served as legal counsel to a group named Workers' Dignity. This group has taken a number of radical leftist positions. For example, Workers' Dignity has advocated for abolition of what they call oppressive systems like police and the military. Do you agree with this position? Do you support the abolition of police and military?
Senator, respectfully, I have never represented that organization, and I do not agree with that position.
Well, then I'm sorry that our research wasn't as accurate as it ought to be. I'll yield.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Campbell, you lied to Senator Grassley, didn't you?
No, Senator.
You told Senator Grassley that you've never represented Workers' Dignity, didn't you?
That is correct, Senator.
That's not true, is it?
Senator, I have never represented that organization.
Yes, ma'am. That's not true, is it?
Senator, it is true. I served for a period of 2 or 3 years, more than a decade ago, on an advisory board to help them set up as a nonprofit.
In fact, you were so supportive of Workers' Dignity that not only did you represent them, you didn't charge them a fee. Isn't that correct?
Senator, when I was on their advisory board more than a decade ago, I did volunteer my time.
Right. You know what this is? Do you recognize that picture?
No, Senator.
This is from Workers' Dignity's website. There you are, right here. It's got your name. Wow. Judge Lopez, Mr. Secretary, thanks for being here. I want to tap your expertise for a moment. Give me your best estimate, just an estimate, I know, of how soon you think the United States of America will be carbon neutral?
So I think, according to the climate scientists around the world, and certainly the cutting-edge scientists that we need to rely on here in the U.S., we've got to get carbon neutral by 2050, and I'm very comfortable with that target, and I think that's the appropriate target,
By 2050.
which is only 27 years. That is not a long time away.
And how much will that cost?
So the cost that I focus on even more is all the costs
No,
that
the
are going
total
to happen
cost.
if we don't get our
How
act
much will it
together.
cost to get us carbon neutral?
It's going to cost trillions of dollars, and it'll cost tens of trillions of dollars if we don't get our act
How
together.
many trillions?
I don't have the estimate or the numbers in front of me. I've seen a variety of different estimates, but it's a large amount. Fundamentally transforming our energy
Tell me
economy
the
is a
estimates
big deal.
tell me the estimates that you've seen.
I don't have those numbers right on hand.
So you're advocating that we become carbon neutral, but you don't know how much it's going to cost?
So there's an awful lot of estimates out there. It
Yeah,
depends
but
on
you're
technology
the
improvement and
Deputy
other kinds of
Secretary,
things.
you're the expert.
I
Give me
know,
an
I know
estimate
with
of
a
how much
certain-
it's going to cost.
I know with the certainty of all the experts I've spoken about, it's cheaper to get our act together than it is to not get our act together on climate change.
Okay, then tell me the cost
Orders
versus
of
the
magnitude.
cost that if we don't do it.
I think it's orders of magnitude different. If we
I
don't
know
get our
that,
act
but
together,
you-
it's
you
tens or
don't
hundreds.
have a cost? You want us to get there, but you can't tell the American taxpayer how much it's going to cost? Is that your testimony?
It's going to save us money, and there's a lot of jobs.
Well, how do
and a
we
lot of
know if you
American
don't know how much it's
manufacturing.
going to cost?
I'd be happy to pull up the latest numbers that I've seen.
How about
and compare
$50
notes.
trillion? Is that right?
It's going to cost trillions of dollars. There's no doubt about it.
Okay. If we spend trillions of dollars and we achieve, some of your colleagues estimate 50 trillion, and it disappoints me that you're not willing to give the estimates. I hope you're not telling me you have no idea how much it's going to cost. That creates a whole new host of problems. But if it costs $50 trillion, as some of your colleagues have testified, to become carbon neutral by 2050, and I'm all for carbon neutrality, by the way, how much is that going to lower world temperatures? Or how much is that going to reduce the increase in world temperatures?
So every country around the world needs to get its act together. Our emissions are about 13% of global emissions.
Yeah, but if you
right
could
now.
answer my question, if we spend $50 trillion to become carbon neutral in the United States of America by 2050, you're the Deputy Secretary of Energy. Give me your estimate of how much that is going to reduce world temperatures.
So first of all, it's a net cost. It's what benefits we're having from getting our act together and reducing all of those climate benefits. We're seeing
Let me ask again.
hundreds of
Maybe
billions
I'm
of dollars
being,
right now
maybe I'm not
in the
being
country.
clear. If we spent $50 trillion to become carbon neutral by 2050 in the United States of America, how much is that going to reduce world temperatures?
This is a global problem. So we need to reduce our emissions, and we need to do everything we can.
How much,
to
if we do our
influence other
part, is it
countries.
going to reduce
So
world
we're
temperatures?
13% of global emissions.
You don't
right
know,
now.
do you? You don't know, do you?
You can do the math. We need to.
You don't know, do you, Mr. Secretary?
So we're 13% of
If
global
you know,
emissions.
why won't
If
you
we
tell
went-
me?
If we went to zero, that would be 13%.
You
of
don't
the
know,
solution.
do you? You just want us to spend $50 trillion, and you don't have the slightest idea whether it's going to reduce world temperatures. Now, I'm all for carbon neutrality, but you're the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Energy, and you're advocating we spend trillions of dollars to seek carbon neutrality, and you can't, and this isn't your money or my money, it's taxpayer money, and you can't tell me how much it's going to lower world temperatures? Or you won't tell me? You know, but you won't?
In my heart of hearts, there is no way the world gets its act together on climate change unless the U.S. leads.
Tell me how much it's
The
going
US
to
needs to
reduce.
lead.
You can't tell me. Either that or you won't.
We're
And-
13%,
and that's
15%
that
roughly
the
of
President
global
of the United States needs. I've still got a few seconds. I got 22 seconds. I'm going to use them a different way. Mr. Secretary, shame on you for not answering my questions. Madam Administrator, how are we going to get plutonium pit production back on track?
Well, thanks, Senator Kennedy. We are doing, the most important thing we have to do to get pit production back on track is get craft workers in the facilities, finish our designs, get craft workers in the facilities, and that is happening. And so we have got great confidence between changes we're making in our processes, getting people on board, doing equipment pre-buys, particularly for glove boxes, which are limited manufacturers in the United States, that we will be able to make pits. We're going to be late. We're trying to catch up.
Thank you, ma'am.